Test, test.
All right. Go ahead. Just let me know when you want to start the cyber brief.
I'm ready.
Okay. 1 second. Picture. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey everyone, James Azar here with CyberHub Engage. Welcome to our YouTube live feed. For those of you who are tuning in right now live, thanks so much for tuning in. Today's our Friday wrap-up section, which we posted about an hour ago with Dan Klaus, President and CEO of PlexTrack, talking about some of the more pressing news. But today is also a great day to be what? An American. That's right, folks. It is. It absolutely is, because last night, President Trump took decisive action against General Qassim Soleimani, the head of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and its Quds forces, the man responsible for over 600 American lives lost, with so much blood on his hands across the Middle East and the world. And you may ask, James, what does this have to do with cyber? Well, it has everything to do with cyber. For those of us who are cybersecurity practitioners or in the cybersecurity space, Iranian APTs are a common foe for many of us. And none of those APTs were established, moved, funded, or make any action without Soleimani being at the head of the Planning and Action Committee. He uses their cyber force. He's developed their cyber force. This is a major blow for Iran in so many different aspects. Obviously, if you're watching any of the mainstream media stuff out there, you'll hear the different political points of view. This isn't about the politics of it. This is about the security of it. We are in a better position today because of the actions taken by President Trump. We've significantly weakened Iranians' capabilities in terror and cyber with the action we took last night. From a terror perspective, we've taken away a spiritual leader, I don't want to compare him to any of our generals, because none of our generals derived from terror or terrorizing the innocent, the poor, or taking advantage of a tyrant government like the one that's been ruling Iran for the last 40 years now. To the contrary, we want to look at this as this is bigger than bin Laden in a lot of cases. This is bigger than al-Baghdadi, in the fact that both of those men never had a terror network and an ideology. This person not only had a terror network and ideology, he also had a cyber force that was out in full power, just destroying organizations, going after businesses, national security, education, and so many other victims, that this is bound to set back. And how is this really going to, and how does this really matter? For the first piece of it, let's kind of look at this from an APT perspective. Iran has multiple different APTs with different leaderships, all of those leaderships looked at Soleimani for their guidance, for their essentially their TPPs, and for their targets. With him out of the picture, and his second in command not being as powerful or as revered as Soleimani was, this is going to play a significant role in the progress of APTs. And I specifically think that there's going to be a rift within a lot of those APTs that's going to lead to, right now we'll see an increase in movement, and I think an increase in attacks. And so as you head over to the weekend, and with the news breaking last night, there's no alert such as a bad alert or a false alert. Investigate everything. Iran's going to be looking to retaliate from a terror or a cyber perspective. You have to remember one thing. When Iran drowned one of our drones over the Strait of Hormuz, President Trump decided not to fire weapons, but to, in fact, launch U.S. Army Cyber Command and take down the Iranian air defenses and completely paralyze all of their air defenses and missile capabilities. for a very long period of time. In fact, some argue that until today, they haven't fully recovered from that one cyber attack launched about 4 or 5 months ago. The same could be said here in the fact that they may want to respond in a cyber way rather than a traditional military bombing, etc. So mind your TPPs. Director Krebs from CISA has posted some information. If you're in cybersecurity, contact your local CISA representative. Every state and every territory has one. Make sure that you're in contact with them, kind of getting some of those updates and getting some of those feeds that they're going to be surely monitoring and want to spread it out as quickly as possible down the chain so that people are able to patch or understand the different attack vectors that are going to be coming our way from a cyber perspective. Over the long term, though, this move is going to weaken the Iranian APTs. Soleimani was revered within China and Russia as well. None of his number 2s, 3s, or down the chain had quite the relationships that he's had. This is bound to create a level of strain within the Iranian leadership, within that middle management level of the IRGC. And over the long term, I expect to see more dysfunction there, whereas and he was a leader who was holding everyone together. It's most likely we're going to see more dysfunction, more separation, and our ability to really be able to maybe breathe a little bit better over the next few years as Iran tries to rebuild from the loss of this specific leader from a cyber perspective especially. There's going to be so much more on this as the days and weeks go by. Especially with 3 days of mourning. In traditional custom Islam, you wait until the period of mourning is over until you really start to kind of plan and initiate your revenge. I don't see the Iranians really deviating from that. But on a more on a bigger note, Soleimani was number 2 to the Ayatollah. He was the Ayatollah's closest confidant. They would scheme, plan, and work together on a lot of their activities. And the Ayatollah just lost a master of thinking in his regime. And from the other aspect of this, and really from a political aspect, I was talking this morning with several of our peers, and one of the mentions that I brought up is the Ayatollah isn't dumb enough to launch a massive scale response that would lead to war. Simply realizing that President Trump is unpredictable. The move that he just made drew a clear line in the sand. You attack our embassies, you launch missiles at our troops anywhere, and we will come at you full steam and we will take the head off. Senator Graham, Lindsey Graham, has been campaigning since this happened to take out the oil refineries in an event of a response by Iran, essentially really crippling them economically. I don't feel like the Ayatollah is going to take any sort of response that is what a lot of people are fearing, because I think they understand, quite frankly, that President Trump would launch the full-scale power of the U.S. military on them, and like he said, it would be over pretty quick, because President Trump is not one of a measured response. He is of one of winning. And he won't start something to deliver a message and negotiate. He will topple that regime in a matter of weeks. That regime is out of money. It is weak. There's a lot of unrest at home in Iran against the Ayatollah and their policies. The rise of the gas tax, the fuel tax in Iran has led to protests all over the country that not a lot of the media want to talk about. In Iraq, before the protests against the U.S. Embassy, there were protests against Iranian involvement in Iraqi politics. So you got to look at this from both sides of the aisle. And one of the people I was speaking with from within Iran this last night was telling me about a sense of relief within the Iranian population with Soleimani being taken out. No one believes that anyone is as confident, as smart, or able to really continue to do these activities. And this is only going to weaken and cause a internal rift with leadership, as we saw happen with Al-Qaeda, with ISIS, and so many other organizations. Once you take out that symbolic master, yes, they continue to exist, but they start to go into splinter groups. There's leadership where different people seek that leadership spot, and that tends to clean out house and allow for that dysfunction to give us some time to really plan ahead and really eliminate our enemies. That's it for this special broadcast briefing today. We'll be back on Monday with live broadcasts of our daily cyber briefing. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you support our sponsors. So without them, none of this would be possible. And also check out our live Dallas podcast recording in February, as well as so much more. I'll be back with so much more next week on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name's James Azar, and stay cyber safe.